Hey up, it's Klye here. The online service for Dark Souls 2 on the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 shut down at the end of March 2024. So, to pay a little bit of a tribute to all the good times I had on Dark Souls 2, I'm gonna do a little challenge run. I like challenge runs that are a little bit more creative and that use the game's mechanics in ways that you don't normally see. So for this challenge run, I'm gonna see if I can beat Dark Souls 2 using only crow trades. The crows are right at the start of the game in Things Betwixt, and they can be given various stones. In return for these stones, they will give you items. But unlike in the other games, in Dark Souls 2, this is entirely random. Here's a list of the items that the crows can trade. Yeah, it's quite a long list, but you'll notice that about 93% of those things are absolute crap. They only have 3 weapons to give, if I get lucky enough. They have the Old Whip, the Demon's Great Hammer, and the Channeler's Trident. They also give life gems, upgrade materials, and various other consumables. So the only healing items I will be using will be the ones provided by the crows. This means no Estus Flask. I'll also be summoning in people if they're available, and I'll be trying to get summoned myself as well. For one, this is the last time we're going to be able to do this on PS3, and for two, if you succeed as a white shade, you're rewarded with a smooth and silky stone, which can be traded to the crows. Quick little rule recap. Only weapons and items given by the crows can be used. No Estus. Farming and leveling are allowed along with summoning, and I think that about covers it. Just use the things that the crows can give. Sounds easy enough. There's 4 different stones that can be traded to the crows, and in order of goodness, they are the Prism Stone, the Small, Smooth and Silky Stone, Smooth and Silky Stone, and the Petrified Something. The better the stone, the better the chance of a decent trade. Now, before I start the game proper, I'm going to need a weapon. When you're making your character at the start of the game, you can pick a Petrified Something, which has the highest chance to give a weapon. So I picked that and I went to go and trade. Now, like I say, this is all down to random chance, so cross your fingers for me. Oh wow, I actually got a weapon first try. I don't believe it, how about that? The Channeler's Trident. I actually can't use it with my current stats, but the requirements aren't too high, so I think it'll be okay for now. Now from this point on, it'll be whatever the crows give me. I just wanted to start the game with a weapon, at least, so I may have made a couple of new characters. I'm going to get my excuses in here really quick. I haven't actually played Dark Souls 2, the vanilla version, since 2017. So it's been almost 7 years. And on the 11th of March, the game was 10 years old. Because I can't wield the trident properly yet, the damage isn't looking too good. It also really only has a couple of attacks because the two-handed R2 is the magic dance. And because I don't have the stats, I don't even get the buff. So in the starting area of the Forest of Fallen Giants, I just fisted everyone until I had enough levels to handle my trident. I ended up fisting them so much I actually despawned them. But that allowed me to use the trident, and it's a 2-shot on these weaklings, which is actually pretty good. The magic dance, however, kills the durability, so I'm not going to be using that very often. I then headed upstairs and got the small white soapstone. Now this is slightly different to the normal white soapstone you get from Pate, but for all intents and purposes, it works the same way. I put my sign down, I get summoned into someone's world, I help them with the boss, and I get a reward. A reward which I will then trade to the crows. It will also allow me to become human, which is very important because the crows don't often trade a human effigy. I gave the early pursuer a go, just for a little bit of fun, and let me tell you this, you never really, truly appreciate 60 farps. Not until you play something like this, and you feel that it's not a very fluid experience. Well, to be honest, I think even with 60 FPS, I still would have died. I'm not very good. Moving on, it's time for the last giant. Quite an easy boss, just to get you comfortable with the game, and I think that most people who've played this will probably beat this guy on their first try. Well, okay, maybe second try. Although in my celebration, I ended up doing the magic dance and broke the trident. And, if you can believe it, like an absolute wally, I didn't leave enough souls after leveling my ADP. So, I couldn't repair my trident. I had to go back to the Forest of Fallen Giants and fist this guy here until I had enough souls to fix it. What a donkey. I went back to the last giant and stuck my sign down in the hopes of being summoned, and it actually only took about 5 or 6 minutes before I was being summoned in to fight the last giant once again. We got summoned into the world of Dicky822. Nice name. I used my magic dance to give us a little bit of a buff, and Dicky fought very well, I have to say. And with my duty fulfilled, I got myself a little stone to go and trade. I wonder if Dicky got a stone as well. There's also a gorgeous little cat back at Majula, and she will sell us 10 prism stones for 300 souls each. Now that doesn't sound very good, and that's because it's not. But once I reach Drang Lake, Klye here will sell an infinite number of prism stones. Yeah, once I reach Drang Lake. So my early game is going to be quite rough. I took all my stones to the crows, and unfortunately you do have to drop them all one by one. It's very tedious, and the only decent thing they gave me was 1 human effigy. This is why I don't gamble. I decided to go and fight the pursuer next. I love this boss. What you do is you wait for him to dash towards you, hit him with the parry, you get the epic sound, you run around the back and you hit him with the ballista. Or you could, you know, miss the parry and then still slink around him and manage to hit him with the ballista. Well, you know, every hole's a goal, as they say. Off to the Lost Bastille. Personally, I don't like this place. The only issue I have with summoning people is that you need to be human to do it, and, well, that's probably not going to happen very often. Just so I didn't have to waste the 1 effigy I have, I decided to go back to the last giant to see if I could get summoned in again and become human. It took quite a bit longer this time around to find someone, but thankfully, our good friend Don Adolfo summoned me in, along with someone else. Predador Vorjar. Don't know why I said it like that. And we had a great time. We ran in and the giant pancaked everyone while I was just dancing. And then afterwards he pancaked me. So, you know, we all got involved. Everyone chipped in, everyone did their bit, and we took him down together. I love Dark Souls co-op. So I made my way back to the Bastille, and it turns out that fighting my way to the ruined Sentinels is a big problem. The durability of my trident is awful. So I may have killed all of the enemies 12 times to make them despawn, just so I have a clean run to the boss. There is an alternate path to the boss, but it takes away health, and it's very risky, because if you miss, you die. I also don't have any Estus or life gems, so I'd rather just get there with full health and full weapon durability. I stood around for about half an hour hoping to see if I could find someone, but I could only see the Fresh Prince of Belclair. So for now, I went to hide, and as you can probably imagine, it went really well. I did try to get the Dragonrider to fall off, but I kind of forgot how to do it. You know, considering I cheese as often as I can, you'd imagine I'd be quite good at this, but I can never remember what to do. So I ended up just fighting him for real. He's not too bad. What you're supposed to do is you're meant to enter the arena and stand still, wait for him to walk 5 steps towards you, then roll away, and he'll do the lunge and fall off. But either way, I won. Now it's time to fight Hornsteen, and in this version, there's no dragon defending the drawbridge, so you can just run right to him. Well, I say that, you do need to kill this one dude here, and then the lever opens up, but that is far better than Scholar, in my opinion. It's Hornsteen, and he fucking annihilated me. I died an embarrassing number of times to Hornsteen. I have no idea why. But I'll tell you what, there is one quality that I possess that makes me a bit of a nightmare for bosses and games, and that is that I'm an annoying little shit, and I will not stop until I win. I will run back to that boss and fight them purely out of spite and through gritted teeth. And after far too long and several trips to the dentist, I eventually beat Hornsteen. Genuinely, I think that took about 50 minutes. Wow, I suck. Although I did go off and find some messages on the floor and rated them. I've been doing this the whole playthrough as well. If I find any messages, I'll just go and rate them. I've also been writing my own messages down too, which is something that we'll no longer be able to do. I made a quick sprint to No Man's Wharf, and here I remembered one of Dark Souls 2's best features. You can still be killed during backstab animations. I slowly fought my way to the ship and I used my human effigy just to see if there were any human players nearby. You never know, people might have heard about the shutdown and try to get some co-op in while they can.
My apologies, it turns out the footage of me fighting the Flexile Sentry has somehow disappeared. I have no idea why, but I do remember what happened. Basically, I stood around for about 43 minutes waiting for someone to show up so I could summon them in and we could fight, and it turns out that nobody wanted me and it was just me all on my lonesome. So I went in by myself and I just walked around and stabbed the guys with the trident. I mean, really, this boss fight isn't hard anyway because this guy shows up as a regular enemy, so that tells you all you really need to know. But yeah, I just jabbed him. Move over, Jaden Animations, there's a new guy in town. The Microsoft Paint Pillock.
I made my way through the Huntsman's Copse and I went to take on the Skeleton Lords. And let me tell you this, I hate gank bosses. Once the wheel skeletons appeared, that's me done. I got my ass handed to me. Next time around was even worse because my trident broke very early and I had to fight the rest of this boss with just my fists. It took a very long time and it got insanely close towards the end, but somehow I managed to beat the Skeleton Lords with just my fists and no healing. Very nerve-wracking, and I don't think I could ever do that again. Absolute fluke.
Now we move on to Harvest Valley, and these massive enemies in here, these guys can drop smooth and silky stones. Well, they could, if I could actually kill them, which of course I can. That was just just an example of what can happen if you get killed by them, just to show that. Clearly this is all just an act, it's just a character that I've created that I'm just incredibly bad at the most basic of things, and it's not an actual personal flaw of mine that happens all the time. I farmed these guys for a while and it turns out that I only got a grand total of 2 smooth and silky stones. Absolutely fanrific. There are some more dudes in the poison, but it doesn't really warrant me fighting those guys. I can't heal myself and I can't cure the poison, so the juice isn't really worth the squeeze. Although I do have a lovely Dark Souls 2 moment here for you. Enjoy that. Oh my god, what is going on? This game is 10 out of 10, I love it. I went to the Heirs of the Sun Covenant and I contemplated joining for quite some time because I wasn't sure if I would get a Sunlight Medal instead of a stone, or I'd get both, or I'd just get the Sunlight Medal and no stone. So, because I'm something of a scientist, I decided to join just to experiment and see what would happen. The wikis are quite detailed, but I couldn't see anything on what would happen if I was a shade and not a full-on phantom. Maybe it's on there, maybe I'm just thick and I couldn't see it. I mean, that's quite likely. Next up, we have the Covetous Demon. I headed back to the Crows to trade my 3 stones, and I was hoping for a human effigy because I could become human, maybe summon someone in, and also get some health back. And lucky me, I actually got one. I'm watching these clips back here and I realise I may have done a slight bend in the rules. Interesting. I actually burned the windmill for the boss fight. I have no healing and I have no poison cure, so I'm actually not even sure if it would be possible to beat the boss fight like that. Maybe it would, but when you go into the boss fight, you are constantly poisoned. Would you consider that using an item as in like a key or something of that nature? Or would you say that because I'd used the torch, it's a slight bend or break even in the rules because that is not something you get from the Crows? Once again, one of the footages has disappeared. This time it's me fighting Mytha. Why is it always when I fight bosses? I get all the boring stuff of me walking around. I got like 500 hours of me just standing there like a plonk. But every time I want to actually do something interesting, the footage is just gone. I've been looking through the files and there's a massive gap. Either way, you get to enjoy some of my Microsoft Paint action once again, so consider yourself very unlucky. Mytha, she's a snake lady. I found a summon sign on the floor, but it didn't work. When I summoned the guy in, it had a connection error, so unfortunately I had to place one by myself. I went in and the room is a big circle, and she's a big snake lady, as I say. So she throws her head on the floor and then it explodes, and then this is a good time to run in and just jab her with the fork. She also does magic attacks, but you can just roll out of the way of those, that's not a problem. Most of the time what I do is I just wait for the head throw And after the head explodes, you can just rush in and give her a quick poke, because it's a good time. And yeah, that was it. That was Mytha. As far as I can see, this is the last bit of footage that is missing. I'm going to have to go into the settings or something, because this is getting ridiculous. Next up after the Snake Lady is Iron Keep. And let me tell you, the PlayStation 3 version of Iron Keep is far less populated than Scholar of the First Sin. But it's still pretty bad. So I pussied on back to Lost Bastille. This is really easy to follow, I'm sure. Lucky for me, back at Lost Bastille, I found a summon. And their name was Daldonius. We dropped down into the ruined Sentinels and we took on the first guy together. Fairly standard. I did a little magic dance to buff us up, but then we got into a little bit of trouble. Daldonius was a mage, so they were able to attack from range while I just danced around and baited the enemies and took a few jabs here and there when I could. However, as we know, I'm not very good, so I took a lot of damage. Lucky for me, my message got rated halfway through the boss fight and I recovered some health. Daldonius was also very sneaky and they had a healing miracle. This fight got insanely close and we almost lost, but through the power of teamwork, we managed to take out the ruined Sentinels together. Thank you, Daldonius. Wherever you may be, you are my hero. After that, I needed to catch my breath and I went back to Majula. In Majula, there was actually a lot of ghosts. So if you were one of the people who played during the shutdown period, we may have actually crossed paths. If you saw a naked dude with white dreadlocks holding a pitchfork, that could have been me. In Majula, I headed to Gilligan to get a ladder to go down to the gulch, and I didn't even die. It took a little while to navigate because I didn't want to use the torch, because, you know, I felt like I may have bent the rules slightly with the whole windmill thing. So for here, I didn't use a torch. Eventually, I made it down to the bottom of the gutter, and because I wasn't actually wearing any gear, I could just roll straight through this acid, and it was easy as that. Behind these acid barrels is a fragrant branch of yore. Now this is a key item that I need to unlock another area. So technically not part of the crows, but you know, it's a key, so hopefully you'll cut me a bit of slack. Right ahead from here we have the Black Gulch, and the amount of bloodstains on the floor should tell you all you need to know about the Black Gulch. But as has been clearly evident throughout this video so far, I'm very good at Dark Souls 2, so I just use the tried and true method of running right through. It's time to fight one of my favourite bosses, the Rotten. He's a fairly simple boss, although he did grab me and wring me out, which I didn't enjoy too much. But that's fine. What isn't fine is that we ended up killing each other, and unfortunately this time around, the game sided in the Rotten's favour. So I had to fight him again. Not to worry, most people who've played Dark Souls 2 have probably fought the Rotten more times than any other boss, so all the memories came flooding back and I remembered exactly how to beat this guy. With that done, I could now unfreeze Rosabeth. Nothing interesting happened in the forest, I just ran right through, basically what I've been doing this whole time. Nothing to pick up, nothing to collect, because what's the point? Why pick things up? I can't use it. Here we are at Scorpioness Najka. I tried to do that little trick that I always like to do, where you can actually ride Najka. It may have took a few tries before it happened, but you know, when it did, I was basking in the aromatic cheese. Brilliant. You know, it's funny, fun fact, I actually cheese in games as often as I can, but I don't actually like cheese that much. I think my favourite cheese might be halloumi. After Najka, I ran straight to Tseldora, and I have to say that coming here earlier may have been a good idea because all the human enemies in this area have a chance to drop stones. So I farmed them all until they all died. That took a long time. But I did end up with quite a few stones, so it's a worthwhile trade. After that, I took on the Prowling Magus and Congregation. Sadly, I may be one of the few people ever to die to this because I got a backstab, and during that animation, I died. After that, I made sure to keep my distance and make sure to not get behind any of the enemies. No backstabs. I almost died again, but thankfully, I didn't disgrace myself any further than I already have. After all that farming, I had quite a few stones, so I went back to trade them with the crows, and I got a white ring, which makes me appear like a white phantom. Obviously going to be insanely helpful, but I also got some upgrade materials, very nice. Now, hear me out. It turns out these Spider-Men also have a chance to drop stones, So before I went and fought Freja, I farmed them up a little bit in the hopes of getting maybe some life gems, or maybe an effigy. Something. They do only drop prism stones though, so the chances of a good item aren't very high. Yeah, as I was saying. But I did get a few life gems though, so hopefully Freja goes well. Freja did not go well. My second try was a lot better, but I got trolled super hard by those little spiders and I ended up dying after using 2 life gems as well. Such a precious resource. Third try, as always, was the charm. I played it really clean, for the most part, but I got a little bit spooked when she squirted on me and all her kids ran into the room. But that's a story for another day. I forked all her faces and killed her, but her stupid spider babies broke my trident. Now you could argue that maybe I should have just ran away instead of trying to kill the kids, and yeah, you'd win that argument. I went back to the Rotten to see if I could become human again and put my sign down, and after an hour and a half, 1 hour and 33 minutes to be precise, I actually got summoned in. I may have also been so shocked that it happened that I dropped my controller on the floor. We're here with Andro Paolo and the lovely Lucatiel of Mirror. It started off exceptionally well because I got fisted into the ground and almost died. I'd also forgotten that I wasn't two-handing my fork. But it's fine because, like always, Lucatiel is an absolute goddess and she's just tanking everything for us. I know I had like no health, but I didn't want to be too much of a pussy, so I got in there and did some stabs when I could. Eventually though, we took the victory and we bid farewell to our friend. The results of our experiments are in, and it turns out if you are a warrior of sunlight and you use the small soapstone and not the big one, so you are a shade, you do in fact get a smooth and silky stone. No sunlight medal however, which makes me wonder, did my teammate get a sunlight medal? Or did he also get a smooth and silky stone? I suppose we'll never know, because I'm not going to go and message him and find out. I'm too shy. But anyway, thank you Andro Paolo for the summon. Much appreciated. Now that my health is huge, it's time for me to take on the hot horny boy known as the Old Iron King. He kept shuffling around a lot, which is very unusual. I don't tend to see him do that, but he was doing it this time. And he kept doing his big AoE moves, which is always scary. But this guy does leave himself wide open for a good forking, so quite easily I took him down. And now, apparently, I went to the Lost Sinner. Yeah, I told you this playthrough is easy to follow. Christ, even I'm lost. She's quite hard to see in the dark, but we actually had a lovely duel. The trident, being a really long fork, can actually catch her as she jumps away, and she does that a lot. That made this fight so much easier. Normally I play with a longsword, so most of these attacks just miss, but these pokes are excellent. This is definitely the best fight I've ever had with her. I'm kind of taking a bit of a shine to this channel this trident thing. I can now open the Shrine of Winter, which leads us to Drang Lake, which means I can now buy infinite prism stones from Chalquois for the chance to get some human effigies and healing items. So it's time for more trading, and I dropped all of these stones at once, which was a very bad idea because it made the game run like absolute shit. I mean, it's fine, I'm not in combat or anything, but as you can see, the game is chugging. Of course, you do have to drop them one by one, and it is very tedious. I ended up dropping my 99 prism stones, and after all that, I got 3 effigies and 12 life gems. At least I can heal myself now. I ran to Drang Lake and took on the twin Dragonriders, and these guys are quite simple. They attack really slowly and leave open huge gaps. So it's obviously just a matter of circling around, finding those gaps, and just giving a little prod. And mercifully, the second Dragonrider has far less health as well, so he goes down super fast. I'd seen some ghosts around here, so I thought I'll stick my sign down, and I got summoned in really quick. So, we're fighting the twin Dragonriders again. This time we're playing with Goki Fenner 1. They took on the main dude and I ran off to take on the archer, but the damage wasn't registering on the health bar for some reason. Thankfully they were taking damage, because they died. But that's just classic Dark Souls connections, I suppose. After that, I just tried to take the aggro for our friend here, and eventually, we took out the Dragonriders together. I hope you did well in your playthrough, Goki. You had to fight the Looking Glass Knight next, and then the Shrine of Amana, so you're in for quite a fun time. Speaking of quite a fun time, next up we have the Looking Glass Knight. They're really slow, so it's not too bad, but he did get to summon in a phantom. Luckily for me though, it wasn't another human. I think I would have lost pretty much instantly. Anytime when it comes to PvP in any game, I just seem to shut down. I'm very bad. I ended up popping a couple of life gems here, and I tried to bait out his jump attack by getting a bit of a distance on him. Eventually, after a few baits, I managed to take him out. Shrine of Amana time, everyone's favourite. Although personally, I have to say, I never really found this area too bad. Yeah, the enemies can be a bit annoying, but you can bait the melee dudes, and if you have enough ADP, you can evade the projectiles quite easily. There are some tricky areas, I will agree, but once you get familiar with it, then it's not that bad. It's not too bad. It's worse on Scholar, especially if you're a newer player. I did get to talk to a MILF and she gave me a stone, along with a very big chest over here, which contains 3 silky stones. So overall, I have to say I'm very happy. I took a few shots on the way to the boss, so I did have to end up using a few life gems before the fight, which is not ideal, but you know, it's okay. But now it's time for the next boss, the Frogdom. The moves are super easy to dodge. I think this is more of a spectacle fight, you know, it's a huge creature. Well, here's me saying they're easy to dodge, and I get hit. Like I say, I'd used a few life gems going through this area, so I was down to 4 at this point, and I didn't want to waste any more. The boss is quite easy, so luckily for me, I didn't have to pop any more healing. But it is getting pretty close to having no more heals. Back at the crows to trade off my stones, and I only really got a couple more life gems, and everything else was pretty much worthless. However, we have a chance to get some more weapons very soon. I've just got to go and kill Velstadt. He's a very tanky boy with a large bell. It did knock me about a bit, and I used some life gems, but once again, I didn't want to use too many, so I kept a couple in reserve. At the current health I'm at here, I would probably die from one big hit, but I might survive a glancing blow. I tried to bait out the dark projectile attack because when he kneels down and starts to summon it, it leaves him open for such a long time. Although I think he does gain some defense. Unfortunately, I got super greedy at the end, which is always my downfall. But luckily for me, it paid off, and I managed to take the victory. I'm fairly sure whenever I win in a game, it's just pure luck. Zero skill. I picked up the King's Ring and now I can go through Aldia's Keep. Once again, I have to say that the King's Ring is not an item you get from the crows, but it's a key item and necessary to progress, so a slight bend. Off to Aldia's Keep, and I think it went well. The Guardian Dragon is up next, and it went down okay, I'd say. Not the best fight I've ever had, but with the long reach of this fork, it's great for keeping distance. But enough about that. Dragon Eyrie is where it's at, because killing some of these dragons here can yield a petrified something. So I'm going to try my bestest to kill them all. These dragons fight exactly like the Guardian Dragon, except they don't fly away. So you can just constantly bait out that stomp attack and win super easy. After killing them all, I got a couple of petrified somethings and made a mad dash to get the Ashen Mist Heart from the big dragon man himself. Using that, I got into the memory of Vamar and picked up the smooth and silky stones that are in the chest across from the captain. What a very important character, and for some reason he gives you a trophy as well. Not in this playthrough, I already have all the trophies. Although I am hoping for possibly a Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin Remastered Edition coming out on the PlayStation 5, fingers crossed, that'd be nice. There's also a petrified something in the secret area across from Mytha, and I missed that unfortunately, so I went back and I went to go pick that up. If you just go behind where Mytha's boss room is and open up the secret passage in the wall, there's the chest, and there is the petrified something. Very nice. And that's it, those are all of the stones I can get in this playthrough. The crows do not trade any bonfire ascetics, so I can't reset the world, and that means I can't farm for any more stones. From this point on, I can only drop prism stones, and the best they offer is life gems and effigies on a very rare basis. Of course, I can join the Covenant of Champions, but I'm very bad at this game, and that would probably kill me more often than not. And we're basically at the end of the game, and at this point the shutdown was coming, so I kind of wanted to speed things along. At this point I dropped everything I had, and I ended up getting a Demon's Great Hammer and the Old Whip. I now have every weapon possible from the crows in a single playthrough. Oh, and I also got another fork. Nice. I had a little play around and decided to power stance the Channeler's Trident, and it's a very bad idea because the special attack drains my entire stamina bar. So I went to take on the Giant Lord with power stance tridents. I ended up doing piss all damage though, so I swapped out to the whip, which, funnily enough, was doing great. The only trouble is the whip has no durability, and this is genuinely the first time I've ever used a whip in Dark Souls 2, especially fighting a boss, and I was pleasantly surprised at the damage, but also very disappointed with the durability and the fact that it leaves you open. However, it's kind of cool. At this point, all I have left to do is the final couple of bosses, and I know I've missed a lot of the optional bosses, but if you can get this far doing this challenge, then you can probably beat them. The only one I think you'd have a genuine problem with would be Dark Lurker, because you need to have human effigies, and I got barely any this entire playthrough. So that would be a case of grinding for souls, and then dropping 99 prism stones, and hoping the game doesn't crash, and praying to RNGesus that you get human effigies. If I'd been a bit more lucky and got some more life gems, I probably would have gone and fought some of the optional bosses, but as I say, the shutdown was imminent, so I kind of decided against that. I'm sorry. I'd left this way too late, and there was probably only like 2 days left until the shutdown. Although when you're seeing this video, the game's probably been shut down for about 6 years, so yeah. So instead of worrying about all the optional bosses, I went to go and fight the final few. The Throne Watcher and Defender. They were a little bit rough on me. The whip was doing good, but as I say, the recovery time is way too harsh, and it broke basically straight away. So I swapped out to the Demon's Great Hammer, and you might be able to tell, I don't use heavy weapons very often. So next time around, I went back to Old Faithful so I can just fork these guys up. I've used that joke way too many times. You know, I suppose you kind of just get used to what you've been playing with the whole game, you know? If you've been playing with just your fists, eventually it doesn't become hard, does it? You just sort of get used to it. You get used to how it feels, you get used to the damage, and I have to say, I'm comfortable using the Channeler's Trident. Never thought I'd say that. Although as you can see, the damage for the Trident isn't very good in comparison to everything else, especially when it came to Nashandra. I also completely forgot that Curse Orbs constantly drain your health and don't just curse you. Absolute idiot. Second time around I was doing okay until she clipped me and then summoned some more orbs before I could destroy them. And people say Nashandra's easy. Come on, she's killing me all the time. Or is that just me being bad? I decided what I needed was to use the Demon's Great Hammer for damage, but I needed the fork on my back for some comfort, you know? I needed to feel its energy. And it seems to have worked because the third try was the charm. I got her into a corner and the orbs kept tickling me and my health was really, really low. A little bit too low to even go out and try and destroy them. So I just stuck to her arse and tried to kill her. It's a good job she didn't do her AoE, otherwise I'd have been instantly dead. But that didn't happen. I swapped out for the Trident and gave her a final poke, and there we go. That is Dark Souls 2 beaten with only items you can get from the crows in Things Betwixt. Like I say, I know I missed out on some optional bosses and those entire DLCs, but I don't own them. But honestly, I'm happy I got this far with barely any healing and just a Trident, with a little bit of help from a whip and a Demon's Great Hammer, but mostly the Trident, you know? Personally, I'm not sure that I could do all the bosses with these limitations, but it's definitely possible if you're more skilled than me, which is not too hard to be better than me. I hope all of those who played Dark Souls 2 during the shutdown had a good time. I ended up making a new character while I was doing this, and I got summoned in to fight a few bosses for one last time, and I got some sunlight medals for some people. I also wrote down loads of messages, but they all just said tongue but hole. Thank you very much for watching. Please do leave a like if you like, and suggest some more challenges for me to do. Not just Dark Souls, other games as well. I like to play a lot of stuff. I have to give a lot of respect to people who do challenge runs on a consistent basis. This shit's hard, dude. Especially when you're as lazy as me and make one video every century. Anyway, cheers for watching. Subscribe if you want, and as always, take care.